Okay, so did you think about it? What determines the strength of the forces? The answer is the level of imbalance. Imagine a rubber band. It's lax. Now imagine I start stretching the rubber band. I stretch it further and further. Here, we'd say it's neutral. There's no force, no pressure. Here, I've exerted X amount of pressure, and I've created a proportional amount of force to return the rubber band to its neutral state. Here, I've, let's say I've doubled how far my fingers are here. Okay, imagine my fingers, and I'm stretching this rubber band. Bear with me, this is not as easy as it looks. So now you have a proportionally stronger bounce back pressure, okay? And here this looks like 4x. Fingers are really working hard now, pulling this rubber band tight. And so the rubber band is fighting strongly to get back to neutral. So as the level of imbalance increases, the pressure to return to balance also increases. Now, with our plane analogy, the engines were always going to be stronger than the wind. In our cell, the force of diffusion is always stronger than the electrostatic pressure. Why? Because given the state of our cell, the concentration imbalances, these are rough numbers that I'm just going from memory, and I don't hold me to this, but these are rough, are larger than the relatively small voltage imbalance that we have. So because the concentration differences are larger, the diffusion pressure to balance is strong. The voltage difference is not that big. So the electrostatic pressure to get this to zero is not that strong. This is important because where you have a situation with opposing directional forces, diffusion wins. So, let's talk about an important concept, and you'll see why I'm laboring this point. It's leakage. See, this membrane is known as a semi-permeable membrane. Semi-permeable. A completely permeable membrane is one where things can come in and out willy-nilly, no worries. An impermeable membrane is where nothing gets through. From the outside, nothing gets through. So semi-permeable is somewhere in between. Things can leak through the membrane. This is called leakage. Now, what do you suppose is going to determine which direction the ions leak? Well, it's of course the combined forces or the net pressure. What's net pressure? It's diffusion plus EP. So the combined forces. See, for sodium, there's a lot of net pressure pushing it in. So sodium is going to leak in. What's potassium going to do? Is it going to leak out or in? It's going to leak out. How do we know that? Because I just finished saying that diffusion is stronger. So whichever direction diffusion wants it to go, that's the direction it's going. But it's going to leak at a slower clip. Why? Because just like with our airplane, this guy might be going at 600 miles per hour. This guy might be going at 400 miles per hour. Still going, but slower. If the engines account for about 500 miles per hour and the wind is about 100, you see how I got to 600? That's net. Engines 500, wind 100. So how did I get here? The wind is fighting us. So in that case, it's 500 minus 100 equals that. In this case, it was 500 plus 100 because the wind was helping us. So this is analogous to sodium, and this is analogous to potassium at rest. Okay, now we have a bit of an issue. You just, okay, I just told us that sodium leaks in more than potassium leaks out. This is an issue because what's our resting membrane potential? It's negative 70 millivolts and it stays there, it doesn't move. But imagine a bank account. Imagine you have negative $70 and sodium dollars come in. Let's say you get 10 sodium dollars. And potassium is leaving at a much lower rate. So let's say you're losing 7. Random numbers I'm picking here. Is your bank account going to stay at negative $70? You got 10 and lost 7. What's this going to transform to? Negative 67. But that doesn't happen because the resting membrane potential is and stays at negative 70. So why don't we have this problem? It's because we have something very important called the sodium potassium pump. But before I talk about that, let me try to explain why this is so important. If this process where there's more leakage here than here is allowed to continue, let's say you get another 10 and lose another 7. Now your voltage is negative 64. Let's do it again. Now we're at negative 61. Let's do it again. Because this is constantly happening. It's constantly leaking. Uh-oh. Now we've hit threshold. Action potential. So if leakage is just allowed to go unchecked, we will cause one action potential and then we're doomed. In the next video, I'll talk about the sodium potassium transporter or the sodium potassium pump.